Thanks for tuning in. This is my story time where I tell the sagas and tales of the Angles, the Saxons, and the Celts. From the story I'm going to tell this eve is the saga of the Children of Loki. One day Odin was sitting in the high hall of Asgard, and he inquired, "Where is my stepson Loki, the god of mischief? I haven't seen him about these halls for some weeks. And it worries me because I know he's up to no good somewhere. Has anybody seen him?" Nafi, the son of Loki, stepped forward, said, "O Lord King Odin, my father is in Jotunheim. He goes there often now, and he doesn't return for months on end. I know not what he does there." Then somebody else stepped forward and said, "I have heard rumors that Loki has a wife in Jotunheim, and I believe children, but I know not who they are." So Odin summoned Thor, the thunder god, and Tyr, the god of victory, to the high hall. "Sons of mine, I send you on a quest to find the children of Loki who dwell in Jotunheim. Do not return without them, and go with my blessing." So Tyr and Thor set out on their quest to the land of the giants, the Jotuns. And they travelled far and wide, and they asked the beings that they met along the way, "Where does Loki live? Who is Loki's wife? What are Loki's children?" And eventually they were guided to a cave on the far side of Jotunheim. But Loki was not there, nor was Agraboda, his wife. But inside were the three offspring of the god of mischief and the female Jotun. The first was called Jotmangard, a great serpent that Thor tied up and put on a pole over his shoulder. The second was a girl, half beautiful maiden, half rotting corpse. Her name was Hela. Thor took her by the hand. And finally was a wolf pup, whose amber eyes stared at Tyr, and even as he looked at him, the pup was growing. But Tyr liked the pup and tied a leash around his neck. And Thor, the thunder god, and Tyr, the god of victory, led the offspring of Loki all across the land of Jotunheim, across the great river that divides the two worlds back into Asgard, and up to the great hall of Odin. And first Odin said, "This snake, it will grow too large to keep in Asgard. Thor, throw it in the ocean so it may be the sea serpent that wraps itself around the world and guards the borders." So Thor went down to the ocean's edge and took the great snake by the tail and flung it far into the Swan's Road. Secondly, the girl Hela, half beautiful maiden, half rotting corpse. Odin said to her, "You are special. I will give you a world all of your own. It'll be called Helheim. It'll be the realm of the dead, and you will govern that world. You will be the high priestess, where the dead come to when they pass from the man's world, from the world of Midgard." And the girl seemed quite pleased that she was given her own world to rule over herself. And finally the wolf pup, who was growing once again before Odin's eyes. And Odin said, "That pup worries me the most, because if it keeps growing at this rate, it will devour the world. And the best thing we can do is dispatch it." And then Tyr stepped between the wolf pup and his father. He said, "Father, I will take responsibility for the wolf pup. And as he gets bigger, I will chain him so he is kept under control." And Odin said, "Then son, on your head be it." But the wolf pup kept growing in the days and the weeks and the months ahead. And Tyr would get the dwarves to make chains, great chains, with links as big as a man's arm put together. But every time they put a chain on the wolf, he would stretch, he would arch his back, and the chain would crack and crumble to the ground, and the wolf would snigger. Odin said, Tyr, this is no good. Every chain we make, the wolf breaks. Soon he was so big he can swallow the moon. We must have another plan. So Odin called to the smiths of the dark world, the dwarves of Svartalfheim, who make the magical objects that dwell in Asgard. Gungnir, Odin's spear, Munir, Thor's hammer. And he called the dwarves and he said, we need a magic chain that is going to bind the wolf. And the dwarves looked at each other and disappeared back into the underworld. And several days later, they returned with a fine silver ribbon. And Odin says, how can a ribbon hold this wolf as it grows to humongous size? And the dwarf spoke. This is a magical thread. 'Tis called Glipnir. It is made with the sound a cat makes when it hunts. It is made from the breath of a fish. It is made from the spit of a bird. It is made from the roots of a mountain. It is made from the sinews of a bear. And finally, it is made from the beard of a woman. And all these things combined together make it very magical indeed. And every time the wolf struggles, the fine thread will become tighter and tighter, using the wolf's own power against him. So Tyr and Odin went down to where the great wolf was now howling at the moon, claiming his sovereignty over Asgard. And Tyr said, we have a new chain for you to try. And the wolf looked at the thin silver thread and went, I don't trust this. Before you have brought great chains, which were honoring my power. Now you bring a fine silver ribbon. This is a trick. This is dark magic, and I don't trust it. No, you won't put this thread on my back. And Tyr said, Fenrir, you are my brother. You trust me. I will put my hand and fist in your mouth, and you can close your teeth around my wrist. And if this thread turns out to be a magical thread, then you can rip my hand off. And the wolf said, Brother Tyr, I trust you. So Tyr put his hand willingly in the wolf's mouth, and he felt the wet teeth slowly grab his small wrist as the silver thread was wrapped over his shoulders, between his legs, over his tail, and back over and around his neck. And the wolf said, I can hardly feel it. And then he flicked one muscle and the thread became slightly tighter. Then he tensed another muscle and it became tighter still. Then he arched his back and the thread became even tighter. Then he howled in anger and the thread began to grasp him. And then finally he fell to the ground, completely bound by the magical thread Glipnir. And then his eyes changed and he looked at Tyr and he snapped down and ripped Tyr's hand off. And then he spoke to Tyr. The wolf said, why would you do that? Why would you let me have your hand? When you are the god of victory and truth. And Tyr said, Brother Wolf, it is quite simple. Some things are worth sacrificing for the safety of my tribe. And until that day, Fenrir the wolf stayed bound by Glipnir until Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. Thank you for listening. See you next time.